Good morning and welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim as we continue reading The Shepherd of the Hills by Harold Bell Wright with Chapter 11, Ollie Stewart's Goodbye. Beside the splendidly developed young woman, Ollie Stewart appeared but a weakling. His shoulders were too narrow and he stooped. His limbs were thin, his hair black and straight, his eyes dull. As young Matt stepped forward, Ollie dismounted quickly, but the big fellow was first at the brown pony's side. Sammy's eyes shone with admiration, and as the strong man felt their light, he was not at all sorry he had won the mule colt for Buck. "No," she said, declining his offered assistance. She did not wish to get down. They were going to the post office and would call for the meal on their way back home. Young Matt lifted the sack of corn from Brownie's back and carried it to the shed. When he returned to the group, Ollie was saying in his thin voice, "In the circus I seen in the city, there was a fellow that lifted a man as big as Jed here clean above his head with one hand." Buck turned to his big friend. His look was met by a grim smile that just touched the corners of the lad's mouth, and there was a gleam in the blue eyes that betrayed the spirit within. The lean mountaineer again turned to the company, while the boy glanced at Sammy. The girl was watching him and had caught the silent exchange between the two friends. "Shucks," said Buck. "Matt here could do that easy. Try it, Matt." "Try Jed here. Try it once," called the chorus. This time the big fellow needed no urging. With Sammy looking on, he could not resist the opportunity which Ollie himself had presented. Without a word, but with a quick tightening of the lips, he stepped forward and caught Jeb by the belt with his right hand. Then, before anyone could guess his purpose, he reached out his other hand and grasped Ollie himself in the same manner. There was a short step forward, a quick upward swing, and the giant held a man in each hand at full arm's length above his head. Amid the shouts of the crowd, still holding the men, he walked deliberately to the blacksmith shop and back. Then, lowering them easily to their feet, he turned to his engine. Ollie and Sammy rode away together up the green arched road, and the little company in the mill shed stood watching them. As the finely formed young woman and her inferior escort passed from sight, a tall mountaineer from the other side of Compton Ridge remarked, "I done heard Preachum Bill say t'other day that mighty nigh all this here he-goggin, balkin' and kickin' amongst the married folks comes 'cause their teams ain't matched up right. Bill, he 'low God Almighty fixed it up somehow so that the birds and the varmints don't make no mistakes. But he left it plumb easy for men and women to make darn fools of themselves." Everybody grinned in appreciation, and another spoke up. "'Cordin' to that, I'll bet 4 bits if them two yonder ever do get into that double harness, there'll be pieces o' that outfit strung from the parson's all the way to the burying ground." When the laughter subsided, Buck turned to see young Matt standing just outside the shed, ostensibly doing something with the belt that led to the burr, but in reality looking up the creek. "Law!" ejaculated Buck under his breath. "What a time they'd make!" "Who?" said Lem as he stood nearby. "Them mule colts," returned Buck with a grin. "They sure will, Buck. There ain't no better in the country. They're a dead match. I'll come over and help you break 'em once they're big enough." And then he wondered why Buck swore with such evident delight. One by one the natives received their meal, and singly or in groups of 2 or 3 were swallowed up by the giant forest. Already the little valley was in the shadow of the mountains, though the sun still shone brightly on the treetops higher up, when Ollie and Sammy returned from the forks. Mr. Matthews had climbed the hill when the last grist was ground, leaving his son to cool down the engine and put things right about the mill. "Come on, Matt," said Ollie as the big fellow brought out the meal. "It's time you was a-goin' home." The big giant hung back, saying, You folks better go on ahead. I'll come home all right." Didn't think nothing would get to you, laughed Ollie. Come on, you might as well go up along with us. The other muttered something about being in the way and started to back into the shed. Hurry up, called Sammy. We're waiting. After this, there was nothing else for the young man to do but join them, and the three were soon making their way up the steep mountain road together. For a time they talked of commonplace things. Then young Matt opened the subject that was on all of their hearts. I reckon, Ollie, this'll be the last time you'll be ever a-climbing this here old road. He spoke as he was really thinking of the time to come when Sammy would climb the road for the last time. Yes, returned Stuart. I'll go tomorrow afore sunup. The other continued. It'll sure be fine for you to live in the city and get your schooling and all that. Us folks here in the woods, we don't know nothing. We ain't got no chance to learn. You'll be forgetting us all mighty quick, I reckon, once you been a-livin' with your rich kinfolk. "'Deed I won't," replied Ollie warmly. "Sammy and me was a-talking about that this evening, and we aim to always come back to Mutton Holler once a year and be just like other folks, don't we, Sammy?" The brown pony, stepping on a loose stone, stumbled toward the man walking by his side. The big fellow put out his hand quickly to the little horse's neck. For an instant the girl's hand rested on the giant's shoulder, and her face was close to his. Then Brownie recovered his footing, and young Matt drew further away. Ollie continued, "We aim to have you come to the city after a while. I'm a-going to get Uncle Dan to give you a job in the shops, and you can get out of these hills and be somebody like we-uns." The tone was unmistakably patronizing. The big mountaineer lifted his head proudly and turned toward the speaker. But before he could reply, Sammy broke in eagerly. "Law, but that would sure be fine. Wouldn't it, Matt? I know you'd do something big if only you had the chance. I just know you would. You're so kind of big in every way." She laughed. "It's a plumb shame for you to be buried alive in these hills." There was nothing to be said after this, until coming to the top of the ridge they stopped. From here Ollie and Sammy would take the old trail to the girl's home. Then, with his eyes on the vast sweep of forest-clad hills and valleys over which the blue haze was fast changing to purple in the level rays of the sun, young Matt spoke. "I don't guess you'd better figure on that. Some folks are made to live in the city, and some ain't. I reckon I was built to live in these hills. I don't somehow feel like I could get along without them. And besides, I'd always be knocking against something in there." He laughed grimly and stretched out his huge arms. "I got to have room. Then there's the folks yonder." His face turned toward the log house just showing through the trees. "You know how it is, me being the only one left, and Dad a-getting old. No, I don't guess you need to count on me being more than what I am." Then suddenly he wheeled about and looked from one face to the other, and there was a final hint of defiance in his voice as he finished. "I got an idea, too, that the backwoods needs men, same as the cities. I don't see how there ever could be a city even, if it weren't for the men that cleared the brush. Somebody's got to lick-wash Gibbs someday, or there just naturally won't be no decent living in the neighborhood ever." He held up his big hand to the man on the horse. "Goodbye and good luck to you, Ollie." The horses turned down the old trail with their riders and passed from sight. That night Sammy Lane said farewell to her lover, and with many promises of the future, Ollie rode away to his cabin home, to leave the next morning for that world that lies so far away from the world of young Matt and his friends, the world that is so easy to get into after all, and so impossible to get out of ever. And that's the end of Chapter 11. We'll continue next week with Chapter 12. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.